Hello, I'm Mario Toneguzzi, and I'm taking care of business. Joining me today is Dan Kelly, President and CEO of the Canadian Federation of Independent Business. Dan, we're about 2 years into this pandemic. You've put out some numbers today. CFIB put out some numbers today showing only 35% of small businesses in Canada are back to normal sales. It, it seems mind-boggling to me that we're still at that low level.
Yeah, it's deeply worrisome. Look, we've got some encouraging news. Restrictions are starting to come down quick across Canada. News that many provinces are following the leads of Saskatchewan and Alberta in removing even masking rules, and passport systems are largely gone, other than in British Columbia. Most of the COVID restrictions are coming to an end. But that doesn't mean that consumers are rushing back to the table. In fact, quite to the contrary, we're not seeing huge crowds back to small firms. They're trickling back, which is good news. But there's a long, long road ahead of us on this pathway to recovery. With only a third of small businesses back to normal sales, these businesses are really struggling to survive and largely outrun their debt. The number that worries me deeply is the fact that 2/3 of businesses have taken on fresh new COVID-related debt at an average of $160,000. That's money that they've got to find a pathway to repay over the months ahead. And if they're not back to normal sales, if in fact many of them, as they tell me, are losing money still every day that they are open, hoping for a brighter day, how long can they go before they have to start making money in order to repay the debt that they have taken on during this COVID emergency?
And, when you talk about debt, you mentioned the national number, but when we filter it down to the sort of different sectors, the hospitality industry was over 200,000, 206,000. Arts and rec were 182,000. How do these guys, how does a restaurant who's incurred 200,000 in debt just from COVID end up surviving? I don't get it.
Well, look, some of that they've had to, borrow against their house. They've had to perhaps cash in some of their retirement savings. It is really, really bad. But business owners, for the most part, are all in, right? They've made this decision, and so their whole income is generated by the business. So they don't have much choice but to try to make a go of things. But the question is, can they do that for the longer term? I really worry that as many of the subsidy programs begin to end, appropriately so, businesses are now left without support, without customers returning in large numbers, and they're picking up the tab for this. So even at the peak of the subsidy programs, Mario, we found that only represented about a third of the losses that small firms were experiencing. The rest fell on them. So the question is, can they survive? Our data is suggesting that 14% of them are saying that they don't think that they can, that they're either going to have to wind down their business or close their doors forever. That's a lot of small businesses that may just not be there by the end of this, and that should worry us all.
And your statistics show that 28% in the hospitality industry are considering, closing their doors, 23% in arts and recreation. I don't know if you've been able to quantify these past 2 years, Dan, but if you have, how many businesses have we lost in this 2-year span?
Well, look, the numbers are not all in. In 2020, there were 60,000 businesses that closed their doors for good. The 2021 numbers, I'm not certain of, but it was 108. We're projecting at CFIB 180,000 businesses will perish as a result of the damage that they've taken on during the COVID emergency. 180,000 firms. That's close to 1 in 5 businesses gone forever as a result of COVID-related damage. Now, some of that's already happened, but much of that is left to come. If consumers don't return to the table, or if costs continue to go through the roof as they are right now, that number could be very, very, very much higher. And we worry about that a great deal. So we're working hard to get governments to pivot, to make some better choices. They're imposing a whole bunch of cost increases. It was good news this week. We saw Jason Kenney scrap the provincial fuel tax in Alberta.
Yeah.
That was positive. But on April the 1st, the federal government is still planning to go ahead with a carbon tax increase, including for fuel consumed in Alberta. So, gosh, with the natural rising prices of fuel and then government imposed additions to that, this is a big input cost for tons of business sectors, for agriculture, for transportation, and for even for those, for getting goods to the market. I mean, this counts for a lot.
So, Dan, what would CFIB, outside of the obviously the fuel tax situation, what would the CFIB be looking at asking the government for to help, I guess, ease the transition of small businesses in Canada to quote unquote normal?
So we're asking for a bunch of things. One, we're saying the government put all of the planned tax hikes on hold. And it's not just tax hikes, it's also some of the other government policies, minimum wage hikes, paid sick days. That's another policy that many provinces are considering. We got to put those things on ice until small firms are in better health. The liquor tax increase also expected in the days ahead. That should be put on hold. But on top of that, we need, the federal government, to its credit, did put in place a really good program, the Canada Recovery Hiring Program. And any of your viewers, Mario, that are business owners may have missed this program altogether. It provides, if you've had a 10% reduction in your sales, you get a 50% subsidy on any incremental wages that you're paying. So that could be new jobs that you've created. You used to have 5 workers, but now you have 10. Those additional 5, you can get a 50% wage subsidy on that. Or if you increase their hours, you can get a subsidy on that. Or even if you increase just their wage level, you give them $2 more an hour. 50% of that will be offset for the next month or two. We're asking for that program to be extended for 6 months because the recovery has just been pushed back and back and back.
Yeah.
We're also asking government to speed up reduction in credit card processing fees that was an existing commitment on the part of the government. And finally, one policy that could really help is forgiving a larger chunk of those CEBA loans, the Canada Emergency Business Account loans. Most businesses have a $60,000 loan backstopped by the federal government. 20%, right now, 20,000 of that 60,000 is forgivable. If that were to go up to say 30,000, that could be meaningful relief to the businesses that need it.
All right, super. Thanks, Dan, for joining us again today.
Anytime.
All right, Dan Kelly, President and CEO of the Canadian Federation of Independent Business. I'm Mario Toneguzzi. This has been Taking Care of Business. Thanks for joining us today.